I knew Michael Jackson as Barry did it, and Morris as a human being. He came from a family background, making music like ourselves since we were 8. We had one thing in common. We had between us the 2 biggest selling albums in history.
Were you rivals?
And they were vinyl. No, the 2 biggest selling albums in history together, and we could actually we had common ground.
And did you discuss music a lot?
Actually, not a lot. The most unusual thing that most people don't understand about people in this business is that, you know, we're human beings at the end of the day, and it's not you're not living your life in front of a camera all the time.
You told me that
you do normal things.
That he would pitch up at your house. What would he do?
Well, he'd show up, if you're like Barry and myself have houses on the waterfront, and he'd turn up on a boat in the middle of the night and knock on the window and come out, which was normal, you know.
Rockstar behaviour.
Yeah, but only because he knew us and we knew him and we were friends, and it's kind of normal. But you know, he was a human being. He was a nice guy, but that's that Michael Jackson I knew.
And now, Rodgers, tell me a story that characterises your relationship and your friendship and your knowledge of the young Michael Jackson.
Well, I first met Michael way back in 1973, my God, on the Get It Together tour. I was in a band called New York City, and we were a one-hit wonder. We had a record called I'm Doing Fine Now, and we went out to promote the record, and we were the opening act for the Jacksons. And Michael and I both liked to read comic books, and we shared the same tour bus, so we became friendly then. You fast forward way into the future, into '95, he called me up one day. You know, now I'm a big record producer, and of course he's the biggest star in the world. And he called me up to work on his record history. And at that time, I had decided I didn't want to work in the music business anymore, and I had just completely given it up. And he kept calling me. He was very, very persistent, and I kept saying no. And I think because I kept saying no, which is probably the main reason why he kept calling me. Finally, I went down to the studio to play. I knocked out my part in 20 minutes, and then he just wanted to talk. We just talked about the old days and how much fun we used to have touring and gigging and doing that sort of thing. And as I've just heard, he was just a normal person. He was just very nice and very, very generous and kind. We had a great time.
Robin Gibb, just talking about some of the more bizarre aspects of his behaviour, did he ever talk to you about that? Was he worried about his public persona?
He was only to the point that it is a very stressful business because you're in the public eye, and if anything, he needed more encouragement than most people needed. Very fragile. And when you're out there on your own, and you've got critics, if people showed the praise they're showing today a year ago, Michael may still be with us. That's the truth. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff that's come out today, but Michael's not here to hear it, and he should be, and he should have heard it a year ago.
Now,
yes,
you wanted to come in on
that? Actually. Yeah, no, it's incredible. I really agree with Robin, because after I played my part on History, which I said literally took just a few minutes, one of the first things he said to me was he was worried, or he felt bad about people pursuing him and the things that they were saying about him. And that sort of struck me as bizarre, because I thought, well, you're Michael Jackson, you're the biggest star in the world, and you have to take the good with the bad. I mean, you're in the public eye, but it really did bother him, and we spent a huge amount of time him talking about, you know, what he thought people were going to say now that he was getting a divorce. And it actually sort of took me aback, because I certainly didn't expect him to open up to me and talk about things that were so personal, but he really did. He really was concerned about people caring about him, or or thinking of him in a negative light.
But that
was shocking to me.
But it's interesting, because when you hear Deepak Chopra saying that actually he thought the behaviour of the world was bizarre, I mean, did he have no self-knowledge at all about how he came over in a way, the way that he behaved, and the way that he perhaps behaved even with his kids, hiding them and so forth?
He may have, but you know, you have to understand that. And I've always been very consistent with the way that I've, you know, talked about Michael, is that I think that he had a certain childlike innocence about himself, and he didn't think his behavior was bizarre, because I don't think that he looked at it in quite the same way that most adults, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I don't think that he looked at the world like an adult. I remember once I went to a dinner party with Quincy and Michael and some friends, and he spent very little time talking to the adults. You know, he was respectful and he said hello to us, but most of the time he spent with kids, with Quincy's kids, and he felt very comfortable doing that. It didn't seem bizarre at all to him. Finally,
Robin, just a memory of him that you have.
The memory I will always have is that, because you know, he's a great music maker. His legacy will be sung by millions of unborn, and what hope for all of us. It's a hope that we all have, and it's a certainty. Whatever happens has happened. The songs remain, and they will continue.